Well, aloha kakahiaka to the pre-game show of the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. I'm Peter Kay, your host, and I'm here with my co-hosts here. We got Dylan and we got Scott. Heidi is out today. We have a funny, a cute story about Heidi, but she's unfortunately not going to be with us for today. But this is the pre-game show. So if you're watching this in a recorded mode, you can skip forward about 4 or 5 minutes to where the real show starts. This is just sort of our way of warming everything up and getting our audience started on Facebook, etc., and making sure our mics are working and everything is kind of good. So let's do a little mic check, environment check, etc. Dylan, let's start with you. How's it going? What's the shirt? Where are you at? What's going on today?
I'm just sitting out on my lanai. I wanted to give you guys an ocean view, but as you can see behind me, the sun's pretty bright today, like it is normally here, and it was too blown out. So I kind of shifted, so you're kind of looking at my patio furniture and stuff, but still giving you the outdoor view. And I got a Living Hula shirt on today. This is our local Kona designer that my kids go to school with. Her kids is Chrissy Henriques, and she got a great Instagram page if you want to check out there. They do mostly women's clothes, but they do Aloha shirts too, but lots of great women's clothes. So check them out, Living Hula. LivingHula.com.
LivingHula.com. Thank you. We definitely want to support the local folks as best as we possibly can. I get the full view over there. Scott's in. We also have we're like getting really sophisticated now, folks, because we're like going on location now. So we got Scott. Scott. What do you got? Scott's on location. So forget about the shirt. I mean, you could talk about the shirt if you want, but what's going on there, Scott? Where are you at? What's happening?
Welcome to 4591 Kolahala Street here in Kahala. I moved locations for today. This is a new listing that I'm going to be rolling out here actually in the next couple of hours. We're not on the market yet, but we're getting ready to go live on the market. So I'm on location, and Kahala is on the back side of Diamond Head. I live on kind of the front right side of Diamond Head near Waikiki. I'm on the back side, and Kahala is probably our largest and most prestigious luxury neighborhood on the island, with about 1,500 luxury homes in the Kahala neighborhood, and this is one of them. This is where I'm coming to you from.
Yeah, that's actually you got that pool back there. Let's get that pool shot there. Whoops, hold on, wrong one. Let's get Scott's pool shot. That pool shot is that nice dark blue with that's cool, man. Looks great.
Yeah, they did a great. I mean, this is a koya wood, which is designed for the exterior. It's almost like you're at a mini resort here, and it's just a private oasis. You got the palm trees in the back, but when they retiled the pool, they put the honus in there with a different colored tile, so it's a nice effect, especially at night when the lights are on.
Yeah, man, no, that's totally awesome. I'm loving all that. If I look. It's like those coconut trees around the corner there, right? That's really that gives it the real kind of private look to the whole thing over there. Yeah, so I'm really that's kind of neat to see. So what is the shirt? While we're talking about shirts, we got a few minutes here. What is the shirt that we're wearing here today, Scott?
I'm the diehard Rin Spooner guy. Every time we're on the show, I always have a Rin Spooner on. But this one is like guys on the woodies with their surfboards going to the the surf spot somewhere. It's kind of a collection of different collages of people in different cars with their surfboards on top.
Everybody takes every shirt tells a story. We got maybe about 30 seconds or so before we start. Real quick, the weather for today is quite interesting. It's like dripping. There's so much sort of humidity in the air. Dylan, now what's it like over in the Kona side now, weather-wise?
It's really dry, and I've been talking about since the vlog stopped a couple of years ago, it got a lot wetter here, and really for the last, as long as I can remember, last year or so, it seems like it rains every other day for a little short amount of time. Perfect to keep the grass green and the garden growing. But this last week it's been really dry, so we actually had to bust out the hoses and water the garden, and we planted some new trees, some mango trees and fruit trees, and I had to get the kids out there with the water can water and stuff. So we're praying for rain over here.
Scott, on Oahu, I'm in a climate controlled environment right now, but it is as wet. It feels like I was having my coffee outside, sitting in a shaded, cool area, and it was like dripping wet just having coffee. Just the moisture is in the air. The humidity's got to be super high.
Yeah, we had rain last night, and then we're supposed to get rain later this evening. And that I guess we're getting that movement, that weather pattern coming in from the south, which brings that more warm, moist air, and you can feel it. I feel it right now for sure.
It is coming in. So there's Kinaya is with us right now, and Jim, of course, Jim is like the first guy in line. We love you, Jim. Welcome back. We got a question from Shelly. Shelly, we'll take care of that in a minute. So I got your question, but it is time. It is the time has come, and we one of our brands here is to start on time. So I want to welcome you all to this really, really special episode, October 16th, 2020. This is the Aloha Friday Hawaii show. I'm Peter K., your host, and my co-hosts that are with me is Dylan Nonaka and Scott Startzman. Really glad to have us all here with you. We've got it's a really big deal. I promised you all this from last week, and so we are just going to do nothing but just jump right into it right now. And so we're talking about COVID, and of course, that's the way we always started. So this one is no difference. And here's what I got to tell you: it is real. It is real. You can legally skip quarantine, and we're going to go into all the details. I know that you're all going to have a lot of questions about this, so I'm going to go into great detail as to what this is. And if you've got questions, we've got links in the description. Put your question in the form. You'll get an auto response back. I've got a bunch of links, resource links where you can go into more details to find out more about this, and we'll talk all about it. So let's roll here. So here's the way it works. So we're going to talk about this is all about how to skip quarantine legally, how to legally skip quarantine. And the way it fundamentally works is there's a couple of steps. You register at this website, travel.hawaii.gov. You take an approved test, which goes through a process to get you a QR code. You use that QR code. When you get to Hawaii, you show it, and then you're allowed in. That's the quick overview. Let's go into some of those details of how that actually works. Next slide, please. Okay, so how to get the QR code. So what you got to do is you go to the website, travel.hawaii.gov. And this is like the most important thing that you have to do. Go to that website. There's an app there. You're going to register. You're going to use this app throughout your whole visit to Hawaii. So you go through and you fill out this profile form. And what happens is you create a trip where you give all the details of your trip. There's all kinds of stuff in the form for every leg of your travel. If you're going to go to the other islands, you got to basically give all the details of what that form is in that app. And then you upload the documents. The documents are going to be your COVID test results. And I'm going to talk more about the COVID test result in a minute, but you go get your COVID test result. It's got to be within 72 hours of your flight. You get those COVID test results. You upload those COVID test results through the app. And then what happens is within 24 hours prior to your flight, as the way you've documented it, you're going to get a notification from the Safe Travels app to answer a questionnaire. So you answer that questionnaire, and once you go through and you answer that questionnaire, you've done all these 4 steps over here, you get the QR code, and the QR code is the key. It is your pass. It's the way you get through the whole process. Let's talk about this a little bit. So here's how this works at the airport. So when you get on your flight, you come to Hawaii, you're at the airport. The key is you got that QR code with you, and I would probably have a printed version as well, just in case. So you got the QR code. It's on your app. You got your government ID. You've got your cell phone that's up and running and working. All the names match. It's somewhat of an obvious point, but I want to make sure you understand that all the names have to match. The name on the test, the name on the form, the name on your government passport, on your government ID. Those all have to match. But if you've got all that, what you then do is you've got your as you walk through, there's lines that they're going to have at the airport. The lines, you want to be in the line with those that have a QR code with, of course, a negative test result. That's the line you want to be in. The other ones are going to be much longer. The QR code line is the one you want to have. And as you go through that, there's going to be a screening process where this is why the cell phone's important. They're going to test your cell phone right there to make sure that they've got the right cell phone number on file. They're going to send you a text. Someone's going to, verify it right there. And they're going to verify that all your documents are there, that your documents are correct, they're accurate, and they're negative, of course, negative test result. Once you do that, you are home free, because then what they do, it's actually, I'm fairly impressed by the process. They update the Safe Travels app that you logged into, and the Safe Travels app gets updated, and you get sort of your get out of quarantine free pass. That's that image that I've got here in the middle, trips. It's got a QR code, it's got your name, and it says that you're free to you're quarantine free, you're negative and you're quarantine free. And this is what you use. You use this thing all over the place to show to the hotels, to the transportation, to whoever you need to show that you're exempt from quarantine. That's the key. And also you have to check in every day for 14 days. Again, with that Safe Travels app, I'm presuming there's going to be some sort of a notification that you're going to get. And that's how the whole process flies. Now, got a couple of details here that I also want to share about this. What about the other islands? You may ask, well, how does it fly? There are different rules and they're still being kind of worked out. But here's the scoop on the other islands. On the Big Island, if you go there and you visit our buddy Dylan over there in Kona, if you go to the Big Island, you got to do what they call a post-travel test at the airport. Now, this test is free of charge. They're paying for it. The county of Hawaii County is paying for that test. It's one of these quick 15-minute tests, and if it's negative, you're clear to go. Kauai this Monday is going to have a voluntary second test. They're going to make a second test available and ask that you use it voluntarily. It won't be mandatory. Maui already has that voluntary second test. Oahu is also trying to put together a post-arrival test, meaning that if you didn't take your test before you got on the flight and you're on Oahu and you don't have a QR code, you don't have a test result, they're working on making a post-arrival test available. And I want to stress working on, it's not here yet. All right, let's go. There's a little bit more details over here. Let's get to the next one here. So let's talk about this, the COVID test. This is really important. You definitely only want to use authorized partners. So I have a list here of all the authorized places where you can go to get this test that will be accepted by the Safe Travels app. So this is as of the 13th of October. I've got this list over here. If you're watching this pre-recorded, you may want to hit the pause button over here. I guess I'll rattle off a few names just to use up some time on the video. AFC Urgent Care, Bartell Drugs, Carbon Health, City Health Urgent Care, Color, CVS Health, Discovery Health MD, Kaiser Permanente, Vault Health, and Walgreens. You want to use those authorized partners to get your test, because otherwise it's not going to work and you're not going to get that QR code, which is really what you need more than anything else. And if you do all that, you're going to be just like, it is working. It is working. I was happy. Dare I say shocked? I wasn't shocked, but I was surprised how smoothly it seemed to go yesterday. We had 8,000 arrivals yesterday, and the majority of those arrivals had the QR code. So the system does work. People are using it, and Hawaii is open. I told you all to kind of hang in there. We'll let you know we are open. And there is a process to skip quarantine legally. And again, if you got some questions, I've got links to all the places that I talked about. I've got resources available for you all. If you want those links from me that I went through that did my research, that gives you more details, more how-tos, just click on the link in the description, put in your question, just something like, hey, send me the links, and you're going to get an auto response. I've got those links in there, and we'll set that off to you. But that is the real big news, folks. And I'm completely stoked to talk about it. And I just wanted to, Scott and Dylan, during the week, as this was going on, I mentioned, hey, if you have any kind of interesting stories about the COVID thing or the whatever thing, let's kind of go in order here. Dylan, is there anything that you've been kind of hearing or you kind of caught wind of or whatever? Because you guys have got a secondary test. It's free. It's quick. What's the word on the street on the Big Island?
Well, everybody's obviously excited. I mean, lots of people are looking to return. I have some folks that I know coming in today, tomorrow, the next day. So there's definitely people that were in the queue ready to come. And so I'll definitely have better stories and evidence on how this all works and what the experience has been for these folks once they get here. But the interesting thing about this, and we'll see what kind of, how this all plays out, is this rapid test. Everything that I've been hearing about it when I talk to healthcare professionals and other things is that it's not that it's unreliable, but it's there's a lots of different coronaviruses and it picks them all up. So you can get, there's a high likelihood that you get a false positive. It's you don't have COVID-19. You could have some other strain of COVID that is in your bloodstream that from the past. And so if that happens, it'll be interesting to see how people react to that, and how they are going to make you do a secondary test that is the more in-depth test that takes 36 hours to get a result from. But that rapid test, if we start getting a bunch of false positives, we're gonna have a lot of unhappy people arriving here, and we'll see how the county deals with that.
And by false positive means you take the test and it shows that you're positive, but it's false. You're not really positive, but it shows that you're positive. And so we all, including myself,
and it shows that you're positive because you have some strain of coronavirus in your system, where there are many strains. They're not all COVID-19, and I guess it picks up any one of those strains, even if it's dormant and you had it years ago. They can stick around in your system.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's hopefully that's going to. I'll talk more about that instant test. My thought on where that's all going to go in a second. Scott, what's the inside scoop? What's the word on the street that you've been hearing on Oahu?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's excited to try to start reopening again and having people come. So, there's definitely excitement there. I talked to 3 people who are coming over here. One's coming over Monday. They're in Seattle, and they had lined up at pretty much the premier place for getting tested in Seattle that the University of Washington had approved. It was free, and the test was a 24-hour turnaround. And then he found out, oh, wait, I can only go to these 10 approved places, which he now couldn't find any place with an appointment prior to November 15th near him. So he's having to drive 35 minutes to go get the test, down the road. I have another client who's trying to come back here with his family to stay at his home, and he's in Utah, and the closest place for him to get tested is 200 miles away from his home. And then I had somebody else who's flying through San Francisco and going to do the United testing, and he called United. Hey, where do I go when I get to the airport? They said, we don't know. You got to call the San Francisco airport. So there's a lot, it's going to take some planning, some definite planning, and making sure you're on your P's and Q's and to make sure you can get through that first step in that process, because the last thing you want to do is kind of ruin your vacation when you come over here.
Yeah, right on. And I'm going to leave this screen on of the authorized partners, because I think this is one of the most critical steps. And that's actually why I spent a lot of time to put together these slides for you folks, because there's a lot of details. There's a lot of moving parts. I've got the links. I got detailed links. Send me an email. I'll shoot you back all the info. You definitely want to plan this out. And I'd say this one is the most important piece, is to make sure you're going through an authorized partner. I'm sure this list is going to be changing over time, but that is, like, I'd probably say the most important thing, because if you ain't got that, you can't get your QR code. Ain't got the QR code, you're going to be under the same sort of 14-day quarantine, at least the way it works right now, until Oahu has a post-arrival check. It's not going to happen. So we have Michael. Michael made a little comment. So Michael canceled Westin Hapuna 3 times over the summer, but now over Christmas that's $900 a day. Now that's a smiley face there, Michael. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know what Westin Hapuna. Did I say Westin Hapuna? I don't know if 900 is too high or too cheap or high for Christmas, but that's a smiley face, so that's a good thing.
That's high.
That's high. Okay,
it's double what it normally is.
Yeah. So this will be interesting to kind of see what goes on with that. All right. So I think if there's nothing else to talk about on we're all stoked and see how I am very, very hopeful, of course. It's great to see. And we're all going to be kind of holding on to our seats, because we're going to be wondering what's going to be happening when the visitors come in, and if the case counts go up and all that kind of stuff. And how's it all going to fly? We got a quick question from Tom. Might work for people in California and Washington, but what about East Coast travelers? Timing looks challenging. Yeah, I'm not sure, Tom. Basically, you've got 3 days, 72 hours to get the test. I think the key is to find out about the turnaround time. You want to get the turnaround time on those partners. And you want to kind of get a sense of, and this is the details I don't have for you because they're partner specific, how those partners notify you. Because essentially you've got the app, right? You've got the app with you. You're updating that app. Let me go back to the partners page over here. Well, I can keep this on so people can look at it. You've got you got the partners. Some partners will give you the information electronically, and if it comes electronically, you can just upload it into the Safe Travels app, and you're good to go. You may or may not need to have a printed copy, so you're going to want to think about that. Although personally, I'd want to have a printed copy. So you're going to you want to kind of think about that timing, how it's going to work. Ideally, you'd want to go with somebody who gives you your test results, within the same day or 24 hours or something of that nature, because then you can have the printed piece, you've uploaded into your Safe Travels app, and you're moving on to it. But timing is going to be key. I completely agree. So this is the great part about doing this live, right? So Michael came back. I am glad. Can't tell if 990 is too much or too little. 2 smiley faces for that. God bless you, Michael. It doesn't matter. You're going to be at the Westin Hapuna in December. So that's the good thing, right? We're in, and that's so awesome. Yeah. So it's going to be funny. I'm actually thinking on this, I'll make a quick comment and we'll move on the instant test. I see these instant tests becoming something like, for lack of a better term, like pregnancy tests, where I see you being able to kind of walk into to a pharmacy. You're going to buy a 12-pack, right? You can have a 12-pack of your instant test, and then you'll be able to kind of go wherever you need to go, and you'll take your instant test and kind of show that you're good to go, right? I can kind of see that. So I need to find out which companies to invest in that are going to have that information, because man, all right. So let's move on. We're going to go to our real estate market segment. This is where we get some quick updates, some anecdotal stories about what's happening on the real estate market. In fact, Scott, I want you to kind of open with this one, because you had a really interesting story that with a longtime subscriber to our channel. A longtime subscriber to our channel who's been working with you to find a place on Oahu. We've seen some stories that Oahu's market is going kind of crazy. What's going on?
Yeah, we're going to get there soon. We're close. And they're a joy to work with. Actually, yeah, they came through the show, contacted me from Germany. Actually, and have moved over, and we've been looking at properties. Yeah, so
totally
halfway
cool.
around the world, which was really neat. The Oahu market's still in the same place as what I've been talking about. Actually, there's a quarter of our properties that sell right now are being bid up over what the list price is. In Milani, it's 33%. So 1 in every 3 homes is being overbid on their list price. A lot of buyers in the market, very little inventory. And one of the interests that I was talking about with someone yesterday is we have a large demographic of elderly here, and a lot of times they're making up the selling pool, moving out of the home that they've been in for 50, 60 years and going into a condo that's a little bit easier to live in. Well, now people aren't really wanting to go to the condo side. So the construction industry is busier. You're starting to have repairs and renovations done to age in place in the home that they've been in. And I'm not sure the data, but I'm wondering if that's leading to why we're having some restriction on the inventory side. We're digging into some of that right now, but that the offer that we put in the other day, we were $75,000 over asking with an escalation clause and $100,000 appraisal contingency, meaning if the value on the appraisal if it was short by up to $100,000, we'd make up the difference, and we didn't get it.
Wow.
Surprisingly, that's a rare occasion. I mean, the property was valued very well. It was undervalued a little bit. It was a really rare, beautiful property with sweeping views and things. So unique situation, but that's some of what we're looking at. We are competing on almost all properties, and even in the luxury section, like for this property here in the $3 to $7 million range, there's been a significant increase in the offshore buyer and people coming over here. I think we've had 8 escrows in the last 90 days, which we didn't even have 8 sales in the last 6 months prior to that in this price range. So even the luxury end and the high end has sped up. An LA producer who wanted to get out of the COVID situation and the wildfires, wanted to be away from it with his family, just bought one street over. I'm seeing Hong Kong money, which is China money, and then Japan is also a big buying pool here as well. So we're seeing more on the sight unseen. We're seeing more people actually willing to come here and quarantine for the 2 weeks and then start looking at property to make things happen and make that move happen.
Sure sounds to me like this is kind of like a dam breaking moment in many ways. Certainly the inventory problem is going to that's going to be interesting, kind of see what's going to happen. Your comment about the housing thing, about staying in place, older couples who have a home that are normally would move out of the home and go into a condo. I'm actually approaching that stage right now, and so we haven't kind of made our decision whether we're going to do that or not. We may just stay in place and build out. So yeah. All right, let's move over, and I want to know. Welcome, Ralph. Ralph and your wife, welcome back. Better late than never. We'll be seeing you folks soon. We're looking forward to it. It's great. Dylan, what's the word on the street of what's going on the Big Island?
Yeah, it's definitely not as crazy as Oahu is. All the evidence I'm hearing from Oahu is insane. I got an agent that joined our team recently over there, and I think they wrote 10 or 11 offers before they ever got one accepted and actually opened an escrow. So I mean, that guy got tons of, as a brand new agent, got tons of practice just losing out on deals, and is pretty experienced without ever closing one. So I'm glad I'm not over there, I guess, Scott. So good on you. But it's still pretty busy over here. The real interesting data point in September was that there was 46% more homes sold this September than there was September 2019, which was a good market too. And but what does 46% mean? That doesn't, percentages don't help. So there was 169 homes sold in the month of September in 2019. There was 246 homes sold this September, 6 months into this supposed lockdown and economic downturn and everything else. So huge surge. And we've seen that over the first couple of months, things slowed down, and then things have been picking back up. And then last month looked pretty strong, but then the September data was just off the charts in terms of number of units sold. And I think some of that is driven by low interest rates. Buyers have a lot more buying power when rates are 3% or sub 3%. But there are some people coming from the other islands, coming from Oahu and buying here instead. And there is, just like Scott said, the sight unseen folks, the folks coming to quarantine and just serving out the quarantine and looking. But the demand is definitely there, like we haven't seen it in a long time, even pre-COVID. And normally, just for context, we kind of fluctuate between 160 and 200 home sales a month across the whole island. And to be at 246 in September, which is normally a slow time here in Hawaii, I mean, it's crazy.
It's kind of funny now. We kind of have we had the sense of hindsight, right? We could look back, and I remember in the early days of COVID, right? There was a lot of questions where people were saying, "Oh, is the market going to crash? Is this going to be a good time? Should we wait until the market crashes and then kind of buy low and all that kind of good stuff?" And that never happened. I mean, except for some pockets like Waikiki that you had mentioned earlier, Scott. That just did not happen. And it just really goes to kind of show, the strength of Hawaii's real estate. It's just really, really remarkable. I think we got a couple of questions over here that came in. And so, hey, folks, we're really glad you're all here. Whatever questions you've got for us, we're gonna prioritize. We have a bunch of questions that are lined up for the show, but we're gonna prioritize the questions for the folks that are here live. So if you got your questions, just pop it in the comments, and I'll do the best I can to take them as they come. Let's hit. This is a big story, and we've got some info on. But Shelley says, "What are the advantages of buying a leasehold tenure?" So what would be the advantage? And there's a lot of leasehold. Well, I don't know about how many leasehold properties there are on the Big Island, Dylan, but I know there's are there a bunch?
Yeah, so Kamehameha Schools Bishop Estate owns a lot of property, especially rural areas. So on Oahu, Scott can correct me if I'm wrong here, but condos are usually leasehold, right? When you're looking at leasehold properties, you're normally dealing with a condo. On the Big Island, the majority of properties, we do have a few leasehold condos, but the majority of leasehold properties are going to be agricultural type properties, larger acreage, an acre or bigger, where Bishop Estate owns that land and then they lease it out to farmers. And so from an advantages standpoint, the advantage is price, right? You're going to pay 50 to 30% less for a leasehold property than you are a fee simple property. So my advice to somebody considering leasehold, whether it's condo or agricultural, is you got to look at it as a business and just run the numbers, do the analysis on whether or not it makes sense for what you want, because it's not a real estate investment. You're not going to see appreciation over time. The value really goes down as the lease gets shorter. But if you can get a nice oceanfront condo for 30-40% less than you can get a fee simple condo, and you can vacation rent it for 20 years, and you can run the numbers and figure out, okay, I can make this much money over 20 years, and it makes sense as an investment that way, then go ahead and do it. Same thing with agricultural properties. You may be able to figure out what your production is going to be, whether it be coffee, mac nuts, avocados, whatever you're doing, and you kind of have to look at it as how much income is that property going to yield over time, and what are my leasehold costs to purchase. And then there's also lease rent. And in a lot of leases, you have a production percentage that you give to Kamehameha schools also. So you just got to look at it, run the numbers, look at it like a business. And if that's what you want to do and it makes sense for you, then do it. But if you're looking to build equity, pass it down to your heirs, move up in the future, it doesn't have those same type of advantages.
So the moral of the story here is look at it as a business, run the numbers, and know that, when the lease runs out, you will no longer have this property generating whatever it's generating on it.
And, you're very likely to get, especially on the agricultural properties, if you're caring for it properly, you're following the rules and the terms of the lease, you're very likely to get it renewed. But again, you have to act like you have to plan that you're not going to get it renewed, and what are the implications of that. So
correct. So you gave more of a sort of a positive thing. As Scott, what would you, let's give the counterpoint on there. What would be the disadvantages? Why would you not? So Dylan gave a bunch of reasons and the conditions of why. What would you not get a leasehold property, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is when you buy real estate, you want it to have increasing value or have value over time. You can buy a leasehold property with financing, but you have to have 6 more years left on the lease than the length of the mortgage. So in other words, if you buy a property with a 30-year mortgage that's leasehold, you have to have 36 years left on that lease. The minute you start getting down lower on that lease, now people have to pay cash for it. So the value of that property is going to significantly diminish. And at the end, there's typically reversionary clauses. About 1% of the properties on Oahu are leasehold. So there are not too many of them, and most of them were condos. And they were designed originally to give affordability to people to be able to buy in, because you're not buying the land and you have this finite period of time that you can own it. They originally started at 99-year leases. Problem is they're getting much shorter. My family owns one at Sanssouci where the lease is up in 4 years, where they're either going to renegotiate the lease for a longer period of time, sell the fee to us, where we would own the land at that point and go to fee simple, or we walk away from the unit and turn it over to that landowner, and then you walk away from the money that you put into it.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Shelly, for that comment. That's actually a big, long topic. I got a series of videos on the website about that. But yeah, it's important that people know that, in the quick thing, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but the one that we take so for granted. 2 kinds of properties in Hawaii. There's fee simple and leasehold. Fee simple is the traditional thing that you're used to on the mainland. You own the property, you own the land. It's yours. It's your asset, assuming you pay your property taxes. And the leasehold is you don't own it. You're leasing it. Just like you lease a car. You lease a car for X amount of years, 3 to 5 year lease. It goes back. Same thing with the property. The lease is longer, 20, 30 years, but it's not yours. It goes back. Okay, great. Jim, our good buddy Jim, who's here with us every week. And Jim, I just want to personally thank you, Jim, for attending. It's just great. You're a reliable. It's great to have these people who keep coming back. It kind of feels like family as good as it can on this electronic way. Jim says, is it possible to buy a single family home on Oahu without a homeowners association, HOA? How much? Scott?
Yeah, plenty of them. Most of them, actually, I would say, don't necessarily have a homeowners association. Especially the older subdivisions, more in your urban core. Kahala here, actually, even they do have a homeowners association, but they're not really doing anything at the CC&Rs or covenants and restrictions that are applied to your title that you have to follow. But there's no maintenance fee, and there's no rules and regulations that an association is putting in place, even in this neighborhood here. But for most of them, the newer developments, the master plan communities out Eva, Kapolei, Rural Kania, Koa Ridge and stuff, they will have a full-blown association in place with maintenance fees, and they're fairly restrictive.
And really quick on the how much question, what's kind of a realistic range to be looking for on Oahu to have a home, without an HOA, kind of one of the older neighborhoods, et cetera, roughly? Scott, what would you say?
600 plus.
600 plus.
600,000 and up.
600,000.
Even Lanikai, which is the average price point's like 2.5 million. There's no association attached to within Lanikai.
Right. Excellent. Okay, great. Eric Smith says, what place in Hawaii would be the best to purchase a 4 or more bedroom high-rise condo unit to rent out occasionally? Well, I think high-rise lops out kind of all the other islands. That just pretty much leaves Oahu. I don't. So, Dylan, are there any high-rise condos in Kona? I don't think so. Are there? What you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think we have one that's over 7 stories, but we have that, and it's because it's from a long time ago and it's in Hilo. But pretty much there's a 7 story limit on the Big Island, and most condos are no higher than 3. So we don't have anything close to a high rise here.
Got it. So Scott, sounds to me like a high rise condo to rent out. That's got to be Waikiki. Is there anything else?
No, but the biggest challenge is 4 bedrooms. Most condos aren't built with 4 bedrooms. They kind of cap them at 3 until you start getting into that penthouse level, and then you start being able to rearrange space where you have an empty shell that you get to build out however you want. But 3 bedrooms typically is what it tops out at. There are a couple 4 bedrooms, but not a lot of them.
But still, in terms of place would be Waikiki, basically, right?
Yeah, Waikiki, Honolulu, Urban Core, Kaka'ako.
Urban Core. Kaka'ako. Yep, absolutely. All right, great. Thanks. Thank you, Eric Smith. Let's see what else we got over here. So let's see. We've got so Tom is another Tom, God bless you. We're gonna let me put a little bit of a better graphic on there. Yeah. So Tom says, and he's been here many times on our show. So welcome back, Tom. My wife and I plan to retire in Kauai. We were hoping to move in 2020, but now it's 2021. Originally, we thought we'd lease for a year then buy, but I've been watching the Kauai market for several years, and now it appears to be cheaper to buy than lease. Lease versus buy in around 5 years. I think VRBO owners are bailing out. I see no downside in buying since I believe Kauai market will be back strong in 2 to 3 years once everyone has a vaccine. Your thoughts? Now, my quick thoughts is we're working on getting a Kauai guy on our show. So if you folks have Kauai questions, pop it in the comments. Should we bring someone on board? So we're going to have Heidi with Maui, Dylan with Big Island, Scott with Oahu. Should we bring on a Kauai person into our show? That's my first question. Who wants to take? I'm going to put this back up here. Who wants to try to take Todd's question? Anybody?
If by lease he means rent, then I would agree with that. In most cases, the rental market is so tight from a long-term rental market standpoint. A lot of times, if you run the numbers, especially with interest rates the way they are right now, it is cheaper to buy and pay a mortgage than it is to rent. So I would agree with that. But that's not a new phenomenon. That's kind of been that way for a while. And there probably will be, we're kind of seeing that where the VRBO owners on condos are offloading those condos. There were a lot of people that were over leveraged where they were taking out mortgages on 3 or 4 different condos because they were cash flowing them. And it was a good business model to do VRBO and Airbnb. But obviously when there's nobody here, they're paying maintenance fees and mortgages on multiple properties. So there probably are some deals to be had. And we've talked about that on previous shows in Waikiki and other places. And still, here, even on the Big Island in the resort areas in Waikoloa, that's the slowest part of the market is the resort area condos right now. So
right, the resort areas is having a hard time.
There definitely are some deals to be had.
Tom followed up with another point: 300 condos for sale in Kauai right now. Scott, do you know what's going on with that?
Yeah, there's no vacation rental income. It's buy on bad news, sell on good news, right? The overall philosophy of what you're talking about, Tom, is exact. That's a good model. It's buying on the dip, buying on the downside, buying and just repositioning yourself in a way where you don't over leverage and get into trouble. If you can weather, like you said, 2 to 3 years maybe of uncertainty in that rental pool and position yourself with enough cash that way, then yeah, the upside potential is going to be far greater. We're in a dip period for tourism and travel like we've never seen before, and we will recover.
So what it sounds like is we have a lot of highly over-leveraged owners on Kauai that went in big on the VRBO thing, and this COVID market is killing it, and they're dumping all of those properties. This would be an interesting time to buy. If we get our Kauai guy on board, I'd like to know what's going on with market prices. All right, and we got a little shout out from Shelly. Shelly, good. Glad you got the answers that you wanted. We're really happy to do that. And same thing back to you, Jim. Great to have you folks on. It's terrific. Let's see. We got one from Tatiana, who says, "How different is the process of getting the construction loans over the regular mortgage? I mean, is it possible to get a construction loan with little down payment?" Scott, you've done a whole bunch of developments, and you're working on one recently. What's the latest scoop on that part?
And I avoid construction loans at all costs. Your costs go up. It's complicated, and little down, no, because the bank is they have to secure some kind of collateral, and everything can go wrong in a construction project. So they're, and if they're going to secure the land as the collateral, they can't rent that out or anything. There's limited, there's a limitation on what all they can do with that property if you go south on it. So they require more down. You can do 25% down on like a land loan and then turn it into a construction loan in a couple of years, but they do require much more down. Then you're going to have bonding, licensed bonding, AIA approved docs, plans. Then you have to get an appraisal after every phase, and your costs just continue to go up because of that. And because the contractors, it makes it more complicated for the contractors as well. Their costs go up with having to deal with that. So I try to avoid it, but if that's the way you got to do it and you want a new home construction, you got to do it.
That's the way you got to do it. Dylan, is there anything that you wanted to add to that Scott hasn't already covered?
I think just to simplify general advice, if you're a first-time home buyer or you're not flush with cash, a construction loan is not the way to go because of all the stuff Scott said. Another thing you have to do is you have to get all your permits approved. So from a process standpoint, if you make an offer on a piece of land with a construction loan because you intend to build on it, it can be a 90 to 180 day process to get all of the paperwork in place and to get the permits approved. And most sellers of land are not going to take their property off the market and wait for you to do all that stuff where there's 100 reasons why you could get disapproved or things can go wrong. So it's in general pretty hard to do, and we don't do them very often just because it is difficult.
All right, great. I think that's all we got for right now. Tom gave us a quick shout out for Marty Law. I know who Marty Law is, but her father's a contractor developer. I don't know if you guys know who that is. Does that ring a bell to anybody? All right, let's move on. So we got our next planned out question over here, which is coming from Catherine in Fort Collins, Colorado, and she writes, "I'm a teacher looking to move to Hawaii. My plan is to get a job and rent for 6 months to a year with roommates. Would it be realistic to buy a condo once I'm feeling settled for $250,000-ish, $250K, and then waiting a few years before trying to buy a single family home with acreage? Would it be difficult to sell my condo? With teaching, I have to apply to all islands and then will be contacted by individual principals. With that, I'm not sure which island I'll land on. I was hoping for Kauai, Maui, or Oahu. Thanks for your perspective." As the non-real estate guy on the team, I'm going to say condo for $250, not on Oahu most likely. But what would you? So if there was a teacher, Dylan, what would you tell this teacher as far as from your perspective on the Big Island, for buying a condo, rent it, and then buy a home later? What would you say to that plan?
It might be difficult, to be honest. My wife is a teacher, so we, have quite a bit of experience with new teachers moving to the islands. The first thing is research the salaries. Like most of the time, an entry-level teacher is looking at like 50, 55,000, something like that a year. And we've seen many of my wife's colleagues come and go. They come in for a year or two, realize that they're going to be extremely poor living here, and so on one income. And the reality is that most of the teachers that make it here, they have a second income. They're married or have, a partner that they're sharing costs with. But it is difficult to make it here on, $50,000 a year. And so, can you get a small condo for $250 on the Big Island? Absolutely. But you just have to look at, that's probably going to be $1,250 a month mortgage. Plus, you're going to be looking at $400 to $500 in an HOA fee, plus a couple $100 more for taxes and insurance. So you add it all up, it could end up costing you $2,000 a month. If you're only bringing home $5,000 a month, it's a pretty significant amount of your income with other costs with food and everything else. So that's a way to look at it.
I was going to say that, and I don't know how many bedrooms that condo would have, because if you're looking at roommates, maybe it's a 2-bedroom at best. I would think at best, right? For 250.
Not even. I mean, you're looking at studio or a very small 1-bedroom for 250.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wanted roommates, let's say a 3-bedroom, because you want to have 2 sets of roommates, for example, how much would a 3-bedroom be looking at, realistically speaking, on the Kona side?
Right now, we featured one last week, I think, on the show. Ilani has great 3-bedroom units for the high 300s. So, 360 to 400, depending on the condition, if it's got upgrades and stuff.
So if you're going to do roommates, say on the conservative side, you're looking at 400, high 300s to 400. Scott, how does this math work out? Give us a quick sense of the math as he smiles. So you know what that means there, Catherine. What does that smile mean, Scott? If you're looking to own a condo on Oahu with roommates.
Yeah, if you want to have, the floor for Oahu for a condo is 250 to 300, and that's more in the studio range. Maybe around the 300 portion, you're starting to get into the 1-bedroom portion. If you want a 3-bedroom place in town, you're probably 500 to 550,000 and up. If you get out into Pearl City and kind of central Oahu, Ewa Beach area, you can do it in the probably 450 range. But I do like the concept, though, and this is what I tell a lot of people, because Hawaii is expensive. You buy the condo first, stay there for years, build equity, then it makes it easier to move up to the next step. Many people try to skip that first step and go straight for the single-family home, and it's too hard. They spend most of their life trying to save up for the down payment, and it doesn't work. You use that first property to get in, to build the equity, so that you can much easier make the next step in your life that you need to.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I did that myself. I bought my first condo, and actually it was a leasehold condo. I bought my first condo in my 20s, and I was very fortunate. I sold it in a few years with a really good profit, and that really was my first foray into the market. Okay, great. We have, Tatiana gives us a nice thank you for your thoughtful insights. Tatiana, I got to tell you, these guys are the best. I really enjoy talking with Scott and Dylan and with Heidi, and you're just getting like the best of the business here. You're getting experience, local knowledge. Dylan was born and raised on the Big Island. Scott's been selling real estate on Oahu for over 20 years. This is just like the best guys to work with, and it's just fabulous. And I've known them both for decades. And Scott and Dylan, I'm really glad you guys are here. It's totally awesome. I'm loving it. Okay, we have another one here from Kirk. Kirk says, what are your thoughts on the best area on Oahu for resale value of a single family home? Kapolei or Ewa or Kailua or Kaneohe area? What would you say, Scott?
Yeah, so I'm the numbers guy. I've overanalyzed this stuff to death over the years, just being the developer and the investor and stuff. Kailua is always going to hold its value. The reality is no area appreciates in an accelerated fashion more so than another. It's typically 4.5% roughly over time. You're safe going in any of these areas because we're limited in land. That's one thing about Hawaii and Oahu in particular is, and I had this conversation with a client the other day, Diamond Head is always Diamond Head. Kapolei is always going to be Kapolei. You can't go 2-3 more miles down the road like you can in Phoenix, Arizona, and start a new subdivision, and yours becomes the old subdivision, and that's less desirable than the new subdivision. We have significant consistency because of the lack of supply. We're landlocked and limited. So therefore, the performance over time is going to be consistent all around. If Kailua was to take off in a trajectory, all of a sudden Ewa is going to look like a value and going to follow right behind it. So you're safe.
So really, it's sort of like overall, the island as a whole has the resale values don't vary that much. Dylan, is that the same thing on the Big Island? Is there much variance in terms of growth rates of resale value of one versus the other, or is it kind of just pretty much the like the old a rising tide rises all ships kind of a thing on the Big Island?
Not necessarily. The real rural areas of the island, over the years have become, I don't want to say less desirable, but with the shutdown of sugar and other agricultural operations, there was less demand for housing, and so other things followed suit. Right, grocery stores closed down, other shops closed down. So in the real rural areas of the island, it still appreciates over time, but it's slower than the desirable, more built up areas like Kona or Hilo. So that's one thing to consider. I mean, you can still get a really nice house for 250, 300,000 in South Kona, South Hilo. But yeah, you're not gonna, is it gonna be 400,000 in a year or two? No way. So, but then it's also just the ratio thing, right? I mean, something that appreciates 10% over 5 years or whatever, that's worth $1 million that's $100,000. If it's $200,000, it's going to be a lot. The ratio is going to be a lot smaller. So sometimes it feels like it's not appreciating as fast, but it's because the raw dollar amount doesn't seem as large when you're looking at a high valued property versus a low valued property.
Excellent. We have to, Scott, you want to add something?
Yeah. One real quick thing is back during 2008, during that crash, what I noticed was the urban core, and from an rental occupancy standpoint, so performance, just consistency and performance, the urban core on Oahu always performs the most consistent. You'll have a little bit of more volatility the further out you get on Oahu. So, for example, urban core only dropped about 5% in price during that downturn, and Eva dropped about 25% in price. And the reason being is because there were a lot of 100% financing loans that were done out in that section. So you do get a little more volatility the further out you get from the urban core, but overall performance over the time is consistent.
Excellent, guys. We're going to move on. Actually, this is I think this might be one of the first times when we had more questions than we have time to answer. But here's an interesting one from Michael. So it's going to be a great time. So Michael, Hawaii's like our second home. We've been vacationing there for many years. While I'm not able to be there physically, I now watch this show, and it sort of makes me feel like almost there. Yeah. Dream of owning a property or Maui or Big Island. Is it typical for retirees to live there part-time, winters and summers back in the mainland? The quick answer is yes. Michael, we have what's called snowbirds from Canada, and they come out every time. And actually, this is almost like Eileen's question, who considers living in Hawaii for 6 months of the year and back to Cape Town, South Africa for the summer. What's the longest amount of time you can come into Hawaii as a visitor? Will I have to leave after a time and then return? Also, how would you go about renting a space each time? You're both asking the same, so different sides of the same question. We have these folks that I love from Canada called snowbirds, and the snowbirds from Canada, they come here during the winter months, and they kind of hang out. I don't know if it's for 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. You have to look at what the visas are. There's visa requirements, and they're different from each country's. But we have a lot of people who do that kind of thing. And to Michael's point about it's almost like I'm there, this is my great segue into we're running short on time, to our Diamonds and Deals, where we try to kind of bring you into some really aspirational, beautiful properties in Hawaii. And we're going to start with hey, Scott, wait a minute. I'm looking at the pool. I'm looking at that pool shot in the upper right-hand corner, and I look at Scott. Hey, that's kind of where you're at, buddy, right? So fill us in. What's this? Where are you at right now? And tell us about this incredible modern rustic kahala home.
I'm ready to bring this on. This is actually not live on the market. It's going to go on the market a little bit later today. So everybody that's tuned in here gets to see this firsthand. But I'm in Kahala. This is a 5,000 square foot home, 5-bedroom, 5-bath, plus a maid's quarters or mother-in-law suite, as we call it, with a separate entry, meaning you have technically a wet bar for guest or help. And wow. But that kitchen, this was an interesting property. I helped my clients buy it several years ago, and it was a complete down to the studs renovation, moving walls around, completely redone, and they did a phenomenal job along with the designer that they worked with. All high-end appliances, Miele with the wine refrigerator and the refrigerator doors below it that come out, the Viking appliances. But you can sit 8 people at that kitchen countertop and entertain. Open the sliding glass doors out to the pool deck area, which is where I am right now. And just a large open space, 10-foot ceilings. It's a really comfortable, almost just a mini resort-like setting. So we're actually coming on today. You can check out the website. It's 4591 kolohala.com, which is KOHOLA. Let's see, Kolohala, KOLOHALA.com.
Maybe pop that one in the description there so people could click on that link. That's gonna be a rough one, but send me that one. I'll add that one. Scott, it's a phenomenal property, and it's in a probably one of the top real estate areas on Oahu. Kahala region is one of the high end neighborhoods for sure. When you said 5,000 square feet, how many bedrooms again and bathrooms?
Yeah, 5-bedroom, 5-bath, and it's
5-bedroom, 5-bath.
Yeah, 11,500 square foot, fully walled in property, which this is about the average for a lot in Kahala, but this is a much bigger property. Kahala has bigger homes and bigger properties than most other areas of Oahu. Kind of the average lot size on Oahu is, in most of the urban areas, is about 6,000 square feet, maybe 7. So this one's 11,500.
Wow, unbelievable. All right, that is an amazing diamond. Let's go on to our next one. This is you, Dylan? What is this, man?
Yeah, so when people think about property in Hawaii, they think about the beach and the sand and stuff. And the cool thing, I mean, all the islands have it, but the Big Island has tons of ranch land. And so this is kind of a unique neighborhood called Pu'ulani Ranch, which is in the central part of the island. It's actually between Kona and Waimea. It's only about 15 minutes outside of Kailua Kona, so it's not really far, but it's kind of isolated. And they are an equestrian neighborhood. So part of the HOA is a full-size arena. There's stables. So if you're like a horse person and you want to have kind of that country living luxury feel, this is a brand new listing that's beautiful. It's on an acre, beautifully manicured. I mean, you can see the views in the background. You can see 2 different mountains plus the ocean from there. So little higher elevation, like 2,500 feet, but just a different, if you want that type of lifestyle as opposed to the common beach lifestyle, we definitely offer that too. And this is the type of options that you have. And 1.5 is not that bad for an acre of land, a beautiful luxury home and all the amenities. There is an HOA fee there because of the amenities, but if you want to bring your horses from Texas or Oklahoma or something, you got a spot for them here.
So does this property? Just out of curiosity, it's a 1 acre property, and you put your horses on that, or is there like a separate place for the equestrian part for the horse part of it?
Either you can board them at the stables, or you can fence in your property and use it. This one pretty much is landscape, so you probably wouldn't put your horses on your own property. You can see that aerial view there. It's got really nice landscaping, but some people do fence in their properties, and you can have your horses on the property too.
Got it. I don't know if you mentioned, but how many bedrooms? What was the thing about that? How many bedrooms?
This one's a 3-3.
3-3. Wow, it's a huge, sprawling estate. Interesting. Okay, here's a question from Tatiana about Big Island, Hawaii Paradise Park. That's HPP, and Hawaiian Beaches has extreme increase in market for selling houses. It seems like the number are increasing every month. Why is that? Is it because of the cut of the farmers industry? Just a year ago, it wasn't so many houses for sale in the same areas. Dylan, what's going on with Hawaii Paradise Park and Hawaiian Beaches? By the way, a quick historical note over here. I once lived in Hawaiian Beaches about 20 some odd years ago. Very, very briefly though it was. But anyway, Dylan, what's going on with Hawaii Paradise Park and Hawaiian Beaches?
There's this fluctuation in the market out there. I don't think there's anything odd going on right now. There is a ton of inventory. That area pretty much doubled in terms of population between 2000 and 2010. And we'll see what the next census says, but I would expect the same because that whole area has tons of available land. So you can get a very nice acre of land out there for $20,000 to $40,000 or less in some areas if you go a little bit more rural where the roads aren't paved and other things. So over the last couple of decades, a lot of builders are doing spec homes out there. So there's been a big increase in the number of available homes. And when that happens, it may seem like there's more homes on the market, but there's more homes in general. So even if 10% of homes are on the market at any given time, 10% of 10,000 versus 20,000 is going to look like more. So it's more a result of just increased supply out there and new homes that have been built over the last 10, 15 years.
I was going to wonder myself, is it if it was because of the recent, I guess the lava flows are kind of done with now, I suppose, right? Because it used to be the lava flows, but that's all over with. Yeah,
the lava's been done since 2018, but even though geographically, like Hawaiian Paradise Park is close to where the active lava is, really it's geologically not. It's not threatened by it. So HPP is lava zone 3, which is pretty safe, which is most of the island, as opposed to Leilani Estates, which is lava zone 1 where the flow was. But there's geographically a kind of a ridge in between them, right? So the lava is not going to flow over the ridge into the next set of subdivisions. So it's relatively safe.
There was some lava flow into the Hawaiian beaches area, though, wasn't there, or close to it, or something like that?
So the flow was right next to Hawaiian beaches. So there's like geographically, to where it goes is there's Hawaiian Paradise Park, Hawaiian Beaches and Hawaiian Shores, then Nanavali Estates and Leilani Estates, and that's Leilani Estates is where the flow was, and then Kapoho is where it hit the water and took out the Champagne Ponds and Vacation Land and all of those areas. So that's kind of moving further south, right? The volcano is kind of the furthest south end of all of those different neighborhoods.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Dylan. I'm going to see about we can take this one on the screen over here. Let's see, because it's a big one. Okay, here we go. So Allison says, I know this seems probably pretty silly, but my husband and I are in our late 20s. We try to visit Hawaiian Islands every year, if not every other year. We're currently $35K away from being debt-free and owning our house. Congratulations, Allison. We're located in southern Michigan, but absolutely do not enjoy where we are. Yeah, well, hey, I was in Illinois. I didn't enjoy where I was either, Allison, so we're in the same boat. We desire to move to the island and eventually want to get into small-scale farming. It's second home in our hearts. Currently, we learning traditional Hawaiian language. We have 2 children. ... So Allison, sorry, I could not get to the question. That's just a technical limitation. So if you could pop in what the question is, but she said on the small scale farming, I think small scale farming, if anywhere, would be on the Big Island. Dylan, what kind of small scale farming would you tell some folks who are dying to get away from southern Michigan? What might they want to look into on the Big Island realistically?
So realistically, the honest answer, if you're going to do small scale, it's not something you're going to make a living off of. It's going to be a hobby, maybe some extra cash throughout the year. But really, farming, like anywhere else, it has to be done on a large scale to have the amount of return that makes it worthwhile and an economic focus. So, you can do something that is more specialized, like flowers or like rambutan. There's different fruits that you don't have to have a ton of land, but it's more specialized. If you're going to get into coffee or mac nuts or avocados, things that are larger scale, you really want to have more land and do it at a larger scale in order for the return on investment to make sense. So it's definitely possible. We have tons of very inexpensive agricultural land, like I was just talking about, in the southern parts of the island. So it's definitely possible, and you don't have to be. If you're okay with rural living, you don't have to be rich to live here. So don't count it out.
So just out of curiosity, if I said, hey, I get the financial part, but I'm kind of financially independent already, kind of sort of borderline. There's going to be we're growing a family. Let's say my husband's going to be a teacher, and I'm going to do some kind of oh, actually, here you go, live on the show. So, Allison, wondering if it's possible to get a place with a $200K down payment. We don't want to exceed $400K altogether. Would love about 10 acres. Sorry for the long message. Don't worry. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about, Allison. So, Dylan, okay, so now Allison she's giving us a better picture. 200K down, 400K altogether, small farm. What's possible?
So, what's funny with that is I think that's a matter of perspective, right? When you're from the mainland, small scale farming is probably 10 acres because large scale farming is probably thousands of acres. To me, small scale farming is like 1 or 2 acres, and larger scale farming is like 10 and up, right? So you would actually be looking at doing something pretty serious if you're looking for 10 acres. 10 acres for 400,000 is probably going to be difficult with any type of decent soil and living facility on it. You could get maybe 10 acres of raw land for around that price. But when you got $200,000 down, you can qualify for a lot of different loan programs. So I would approach a loan officer and run numbers and figure out what your monthly, what you're comfortable paying monthly at, with the $200,000 down payment, and don't limit yourself to $400,000 because you could open up your options. $400,000 mortgage is like $2,000 a month, and so with $200,000 down, you could really be looking at a $600,000 mortgage if you're comfortable with $2,000 a month mortgage. So you really want to look at what your monthly costs are. And again, if you're looking at doing farming, what is your expected revenue? Run the numbers, look at it like a business, and you may have more options than you think you do.
So just out of curiosity, just to kind of stay within her, let's just stick within Allison's range. So Allison says 400K. What kind of, what kind of farmable land, what kind of, how much acreage, how much farmable land acreage could you realistically expect to get on the Big Island with a 400K total price?
A couple of acres. With a house on it. Yeah, if you're looking to buy land with a house, 2, maybe 3, but you're going to be rural, right? You're going to be 40 minutes away from the grocery stores and the Walmarts and stuff like that, or more, an hour plus.
It's the farm. It's the farm spot. All right. Well, you know what? I think that is it. We're right on time, and all the questions just came in. Man, this is God's way of working it all out. Well, folks, I hope this was educational for you. Hawaii is you can legally skip quarantine. It's in the earlier part of the video. If you're just coming into us now, you could play it back. I went through all the details of what it takes. Hope to see you here. We got the best folks in the business. Heidi's not with us, but she will be back at our next show in 2 weeks. This is the time. You can come in. You can put your appointments in. You want to get a hold of Dylan and Scott to get your properties to get that property work going. Yeah, Jeremy, man, we love you too, buddy. Thanks for coming back. Great to see you. And there, boom. And then Allison got the perfect answer. Allison, Dylan's the bomb.
Reach out. We'll talk.
Reach out to Dylan. You want to work with Dylan and Scott. And Scott, maybe we can get somebody. Jim, I think you need to buy Scott's property. I think that's Jim. You and that $4.7 million, 5,000 square foot property. That's meant for you. And all the thanks are coming in. So thanks, folks. We love you all. See you in 2 weeks. This is Peter, and we got Dylan and Scott. Aloha, everybody. Have a great week.
Hello, everybody. Have a good weekend.
See you all later.